Hello you lovely lot, my name is Max, welcome back to my YouTube channel and another Nottingham Forest match preview where today we are detailing Forest's upcoming home game against Bournemouth. If you're new to these kinds of videos, the format goes as following. We start with an initial discussion, giving some context to our opposition, followed by some of the key stats and players for the opposition on the day, as well as a deep dive into their tactics and finally an overall score prediction for the match from yours truly. So before we get into that, don't forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a single match preview. Without any further ado, let's start talking about Bournemouth. Hello everyone, this is Max from the future to tell you that I've literally just found out about 2 minutes ago that Scott Parker has been sacked as Bournemouth manager. Therefore, we will not be doing a tactics overview of Bournemouth because, of course, we don't know who their new manager is going to be. So we don't know what to expect from them necessarily on the game. Apologies for cutting that out. I've added a little bit more detail into the stats and key players section, though, to bulk out this video to its usual length. Apologies, though, we won't be doing the tactics. So let's start talking about Bournemouth properly. So as usual, we'll be starting by giving a bit of context to our opposition and what a season it was last time out for Bournemouth, promoted to the Premier League under Scott Parker, finishing second in the Championship, taking that last promotion place and getting promoted, unfortunately, against ourselves towards the back end of the season, that Kiefer Moore goal being the goal that sealed their spot in the Premier League for this season. And heading into this summer, they have reinvested and rejuvenated that team, spending around £25 million on some key first team assets, despite some of the departures they saw over the course of the summer. This includes a £10 million deal for former Middlesbrough midfielder Marcus Tavernier, a player heavily linked to Nottingham Forest earlier in the window and a player I've done a video on. I'll leave it in the icon above this video. And a £15 million deal for former Feyenoord defender Marco Sense, a player who I don't know too much about but looks pretty decent from what I've seen from him so far. Despite this, they haven't started the season too well. At the time of recording, we're 4 games into the season. They won their opening game, to be fair to them, 2-0 against Aston Villa, but have gone on to lose their next 3 games, failing to score in those 3 games and conceding 16 goals to Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester City, including in their most recent game, a 9-0 defeat against Liverpool. Not going too well for this Bournemouth side at the moment. But with that being said, let's discuss some of the stats in a bit more detail and offer some more substance behind the side and talk about some of their key players at the moment. Bournemouth's stats this season have been poor, to say the least. They have scored just 2 goals in the Premier League this season, the joint second worst league rating at this season, have the lowest XG generated over the course of the season and take the fewest shots per 90 minutes as well. And when we flip things over to their defensive stats, it doesn't really get any better. In fact, it probably gets a bit worse. The worst defensive record in the Premier League on goals conceded and expected goals conceded at the time of recording. And they also face the second most shots in the Premier League, only second to Nottingham Forest. So I would imagine there's probably going to be a few goals in this game. And just then we've mentioned about how many shots they faced in their matches. If you look at their shot quality in a lot more detail, the shots they face are usually of high quality as well. If we look at proximity to goal of shots conceded, they tend to be quite close to goal, quite a short distance from goal, a close proximity, if you will. And that means that they aren't just facing a high volume of shots, but they're also facing high quality shots. If we were looking at Spurs and West Ham like we have in recent weeks, they're teams that face quite a lot of shots, but they are shots generally of inferior qualities to other teams in the Premier League. Unfortunately, Bournemouth are the worst of both cases. And unfortunately, their keeper Mark Travers is having an absolute stinker this season, with the second lowest save percentage of any goalkeeper in the Premier League this season, only second to Leicester, who I don't even think have a first team keeper at the moment, just 40% save percentage. And for reference, about league average over the last few seasons has been between sort of 68 to 72% for Premier League goalkeepers, and this guy is batting well below average, and that's probably a big sign as to why they've shipped so many goals at the beginning of the campaign. And the worst thing is he's not preventing goals either. His save percentage is really low, and if you look at things like post-shot expected goals, he isn't preventing goals, which is something that, say, Dean Henderson is doing for Nottingham Forest, which I think in the long run, in terms of staying in the Premier League, those are the kinds of things that you would want really positive as a team looking to avoid avoid relegation, and unfortunately Bournemouth are on the wrong side of that swing. And it is disappointing. Mark Travers showed last season in the Championship that he was a pretty promising goalkeeper, had one of the better save percentages in the Championship, was decent with his feet, and obviously got promoted with the Cherries, but unfortunately he's really struggled to adapt to Premier League life. And I just hope for the guy that maybe he catches some form after this game, obviously, but catches some form down the season, because he's clearly a decent shot stopper, but he's just having not the rub of the green so far this campaign. Generally, with teams in this kind of scenario, I do find it quite difficult to find positives, but one player I do want to do a little bit of a deep dive on is Marcus Tavernier. He is a player, of course, who I did an in-depth analysis of earlier in the summer window. If you want to watch that, I'll leave that in the iCard above this video. I don't know which side it'll be, but I'll leave that in the iCard so you can go check that out in a more in-depth analysis of tactically where he would fit into this team. But we're going to talk a bit more succinctly about what he actually gives to this Bournemouth team, his stats in the Championship last season, and what made him such a coveted asset for both Bournemouth and Forest this summer. For Borough last season in the Championship, Marcus Tavernier made 44 league appearances and scored 4 times, completing the most tackles in their squad over the course of the campaign. And when you look at the progressiveness of his play, he was 5th in the Championship for under 23 midfielders for progressive carries, and in general was one of the better ball carrying midfielders in the Championship last season, completing around 1.2 dribbles per 90 minutes. It is worth noting though that he was quite a high volume dribbler, and the success of his dribbles was more often than not not that good, so I would suggest that it's maybe an area of his game to improve on potentially. The final thing I want to touch on with Marcus Tavernier was his importance to the team in the final third and in terms of creating chances for the side. Overall, he was in the top 20% of midfielders in the Championship last season for passes into the penalty area, and in terms of expected goals and assists, he was in the top 10% of midfielders in the Championship, suggesting a player who does a lot of the defensive work in this system, but is also a huge asset in the final third, and generally is a really good box-to-box option in that midfield. And you can see why teams were looking at paying upwards of £10 million for him. And I think in the long run, he will probably do quite well for Bournemouth. Even if they get relegated, I can see him being a big part in them pushing back up to the Premier League the season after next. So in terms of a score prediction for this game, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for Nottingham Forest against Bournemouth. I do feel like on paper we are the better side. Of course, Bournemouth are licking their wounds from 3 losses on the bounce at the time of recording, having conceded 16 goals in the process. And it does generally feel like there is a more positive feeling in the Forest squad compared to the Bournemouth squad. And I just think it's probably there for the taking for the Reds. We'll have to take it seriously, of course. Bournemouth, very decent side on their day, turned over Villa on the opening day of the season, who are no slouches in their own right, and I do think that they have quality in the final third that could cause us problems, hence the loss at the back end of last season. But generally, I think we'll be good for the 2-0 win. Of course, though, let me know what you think the scoreline is going to be in the comment section down below, and whilst you're down there, don't forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next few match previews coming out over September and October. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the game, Reds. I will catch you later.